Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Spring Ohigan service for this year. Is it okay if I take up? As all of you know, Ohigan is an observance that's held twice a year at what is called the vernal or spring and autumnal or fall equinox. And so it's basically the first day of spring and the first day of fall, when the nights and days and nights are basically equal length, 12 hours apart. And not only do we have equal parts of day and night, but also in all but the extreme north and south regions, we have the best weather of the year. Although I think this year maybe we may not be able to say that because we've had such a rainy winter, and it's still kind of continuing, although it's not nearly as heavy as it's been over the last few months. But at any rate, I think we can look forward to a really nice weather coming up soon, hopefully. And I would say that generally speaking, the spring and autumn equinox are usually preceded by good weather, not too cold, not too hot. This year it's still a little cold, as I said, and the rains are still continuing. And in the Buddha's time, when we think back over 2,000 years ago, he set aside these 2 times of the year, it's said, to hold retreats for the Sangha, for the members of his his group. And so we always say that Ohigan is a time for us to reflect on all that we've learned from the Dharma and to do the best we can to apply it to everyday lives. And during the Buddha's time, he would set aside these 2 times of the year to hold retreats for the Sangha, so that that they can continue to learn from Shakyamuni Buddha. Some time ago, I was at a meeting with the what we call the Nikkei Interfaith Fellowship, and it's a group of Japanese American clergy, both Buddhist, Christian, and Tendikyo, and we used to have Reverend Alfred Tsuyuki, who was representing the Konko tradition, who passed away unfortunately recently. But at any rate, we have these meetings and we talk about, the commonality that we all have as Buddhists and Christians and so forth. But also, we talk about the holidays that we observe and things like that. And also, kind of talking about the beliefs of each tradition. And so I remember one time we were talking about the interpretation of heaven and God in the Christian tradition, and it's like not all of the Christians agree with the teachings that they present to their members. Some are more traditional, some are more liberal, and so forth. And I remember that one time we were talking about God, the God in the heavens, and the heavens exist for us after we pass away, and so forth. And one minister said that she never refers to God as a he or a she. So in other words, God is kind of more like Amida. We don't think about Amida Buddha as a actual Buddha who lived or anything like that. And it's more kind of like the Buddha who represents all of the ideals of Buddhism. And so that, the representatives from like the United Methodist Church, Episcopal Church, and so forth, all are major denominations in the United States and in Western countries. And some of them said that we don't really believe in the concept of a God in the heavens, and a heaven that exists for us to go to when we die. And they do not believe literally in such teachings. And one minister said, as I said, she never refers to God as a he or she. So in other words, not as a kind of a being that, she can communicate with and so forth. And so the Buddhists that were there, we said that that would be kind of similar as to how we view Amida Buddha and the Pure Land. And according to the traditional views on Ohigan, one teaching was that since the equinox, when the days and nights are exactly the same length, well, traditionally they say that the other thing that happens is that the sun sets exactly due west. And so when you, look towards the sun as it's setting, you're looking towards the Pure Land. And that, because in the sacred text, they say that the Pure Land exists exactly due west of us. So at Ohigan, when we face the setting sun, put our hands together in Gassho and bow, we are showing our respect to all of the Buddhas of the past and to all of our ancestors. And one teaching even says that on the day of the equinox, the gates to the Pure Land are open and that our ancestors can come back to visit their homes. Of course, these are teachings that, from our Jōdo Shinshu perspective, are metaphors or myths and not to be understood literally. But the fact is that many people do, take those teachings literally. And so Reverend Kodani was active at the time when we were having this meeting, and what he said is, I think it's better to use the term gokuraku rather than Jōdo. And so, Jōdo, as you know, is directly translated as pure land, the land of Amida Buddha. But then gokuraku is a word that can be translated as the state of extreme joy. And so he said, and I agree, that in the Pure Land, the word land gets in the way. In the same with Amida Buddha, when we put Buddha after Amida, we can't help but identify the teaching as a person or as person-like. In the Pure Land, since Ohigan has that direct link to this teaching, I would like us to think about what the Pure Land in our Jōdo Shinshu tradition is. We can realize how important the concept of the Pure Land is because it is part of the name of our denomination, Jōdo Shinshu. And Jōdo, as I said earlier, being the direct translation of Pure Land. It is a concept that's referred to in a good number of the original teachings, the sutras, and it's the main subject of the 3 sutras of our denomination that our denomination is based on. According to the sutras, the Pure Land is the realm that was created by Amida Buddha. Of the Pure Land, it said that the land is pure and illuminates all of the Buddha lands throughout the cosmos, and that everything in his land, the palaces, the towers, the ponds and streams, flowers and trees, be formed of precious substances, possessed of surpassing grace and excellence, and imbued with fragrances that pervade the universe. In addition, the land is to be free of the realms of hell, hungry ghosts, hungry spirits, and animals. And so hearing that description, we can imagine that the beauty of our altar is characteristic or is, made in the form of the descriptions of the Pure Land. And then we can also imagine that the description is not all that different from the image we might have of heaven in Western religions, a kind of a paradise, so to speak. According to the text, it said that Amida Buddha will welcome everyone into the Pure Land who recites his name, in other words, Namo Amida Butsu. And so taking this teaching literally, we can imagine Amida Buddha to be the benevolent, in quotes, God who welcomes people into his Pure Land. Again, not much different from heaven and God in the Judeo-Christian tradition. It is true that most people stop stop here, and those who had and have not gone deeper into the teachings regarded Amida as some kind of like a godlike symbol, and the Pure Land as kind of a heavenly place that maybe we can go to after we die. Because if that is true, if the Pure Land is some kind of afterlife heaven in which we're rewarded for living a good life, then it's just an extension and an affirmation of human greed and attachment. In other words, we want things to be good in our lives right now, and then if there is an afterlife, or if there is something that comes after we die, we want that to be, good as well. So we want all of the luxuries that we yearn for in life to be even better after we die. But Shinran Shonin didn't interpret the Pure Land in this way. He accepted the teaching of Amida Buddha and the Pure Land as metaphors for the process of our awakening. People then said, well, if it isn't the kind of heaven that we go to after we die, then how are we to understand it? And scholars have defined it as a symbol for ultimate truth, for the teaching of nirvana as the realm of enlightenment, the world of the Buddha. But then even, that's quite confusing also. So how are we to interpret the Pure Land in the context of our everyday lives? We should first look at the story of how Amida Buddha created the Pure Land. And the story begins with a young seeker by the name of Dharmakara, who is so impressed in meeting a great Buddha that he asks to become a student so that he can learn how to become a Buddha himself. The teacher tells Dharmakara to work diligently to seek enlightenment, that goal that he relates like finding the treasure at the bottom of the ocean. And even if it is only the means of getting water out, even if his only means of getting that water out so that he can reach the treasure at the bottom of the ocean, all he has is a small ladle, and that if he's diligent in his quest, the treasure will be his. So we generally separate the goal from the quest, from the process, but Buddhism equates the two. The goal and the process are the same. And so Dharmakara's goal was to seek enlightenment, but it is as if he came to realize that the goal of enlightenment is the same as the process of seeking. And so his realization was in becoming the perfect seeker, the complete and thorough seeker, or the true student. So understood in this way, the Pure Land symbolizes the place where true seeking takes place. Just as in the example of the description of the Pure Land I introduced earlier, when we look around here in this Hondo, we can see the manifestations of symbolic descriptions of the Pure Land. We can see the beauty of the altar. We can smell the beautiful fragrance of the incense, and whether it be in the chanting or in the Dharma talks, we can hear the teachings of the Buddha. In a passage written by the eminent teacher, the Reverend Rijin Yasuda, which was translated by Dr. Haneda, he says, "People say various things about birth in the Pure Land, but how could there be any greater birth in the Pure Land than the fact that we are now sitting and learning the Dharma together? This place where we are listening to the Dharma together is the Pure Land. Our being allowed to be part of this place, of this Sangha, of this temple, is the birth in the Pure Land. Do you think that you can have anything greater than this in your life? The fact that you're listening to the Dharma as a member of the Sangha. Some people may ask about the wonderful things to be obtained in the Pure Land after death, but those things are nothing but projections, as I mentioned earlier, of human greed. The fact that we are privileged to be part of the Sangha is our liberation, our joy in the Pure Land. So we might say to ourselves, okay, so the temple is the Pure Land. I can enjoy birth in the Pure Land by coming to the temple. We also often say that the Namu, Namu Amida Butsu, means to bow. And that act of bowing is a symbol of our humility. But more importantly, it's the expression, the genuine expression of our acknowledgement that I am imperfect, that I have many shortcomings and faults that I often try to hide. For if we come here with the attitude that I already know enough, then we are not good students. We only take from the Dharma what we already believe and discard the rest. For it is then that we realize that the Pure Land is right here, right in front of our eyes. It is when we acknowledge the temple not just as a sacred place for us to come to and to feel good in, but as what in Japanese we call dojo, like a judo dojo or a karate dojo. And dojo, that word means a place for serious learning. Let's see, it's a place for serious learning where we can, learn about whatever it is being taught. It's dynamic, and it can only be that if we participate fully. So some teachers like to say that the Pure Land is not a noun, but rather it's a verb. So for us, I would say that the challenge is to create our own version of the Pure Land. The world certainly isn't an ideal place. We see so much suffering around the world. We see people treating others unkindly. The news, especially lately, is filled with violence, car crashes, and gun violence and so forth. And it really shows that the problems between people and sometimes, between races still exist. Not just to feel sad about it or to criticize the people involved, but rather to look inward and to ask, well, what about me? Do I sometimes act in the same way as those other people? To learn from the Buddha-Dharma, to take those lessons and grow from them, to create that Pure Land or that state of extreme joy, not simply for myself, not only for my inner circle, but for all people and for all living things we encounter through all of the experiences that we enjoy in life. I think that this is as much the meaning of Ohigan as other ways in which we can appreciate it. But at any rate, I thank you all for joining us, and thank those who are online also for joining us for our Ohigan service. Thank you.